Hey, what's up, friends and family? It's your boy Tony coming at you live at 10 p.m. here Eastern Standard Time in the U.S. And let's talk about France real quick because there's a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces happening in France right now amidst protests that are happening. They're considering a state of emergency for the first time in a long time, following a whole bunch of riots that are happening and tear gas and just all types of mayhem. So it was a tough homecoming for French President Emmanuel Macron. As soon as he stepped off the plane from the G20 summit, he found himself in the middle of a political crisis following the worst riots to hit Paris since 1968. More than 400 people have been arrested, 260 injured nationwide Saturday, as thousands of police officers tried to quell protesters that burned cars, looted stores, and smashed windows. The protesters also spray painted some of the most iconic monuments in Paris, including the Arc de Triomphe. I've worked on monuments around Paris for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this at the Arc de Triomphe. It was carnage, a Paris City Hall officer overseeing the cleanup said. And this is sad for me because Paris is a very beautiful city in my mind. I've been once, traveled there once with my wife, and it's such a beautiful city. And to see people looting and protesting, I mean, it's one thing for it to happen in America. You know, it's a relatively new country, relatively. But to see things like this happen in France is sad. The growth, anyway, let me just continue this story. The growth in the so-called yellow vest protests appears to have caught Macron's administration off guard as a movement that began against fuel taxes has grown into a broader anti-government movement. So that the people, the reason why they're wearing these yellow vests, as you can see here in the video, is because those are the vests of people that drive their cars. You're required to have like a yellow vest in your car. And so the folks protesting are just normal people like you and I, and they're protesting high gas prices. And I guess we should protest high gas prices as well, even though they have been pretty low right now, especially in Michigan. They're at like an all-time low. But, you know, maybe that's because we have a president like Donald Trump who has been hard on certain areas and has been pretty lenient in others. And in one of those lenient areas he's been is the environment. And he's trying to keep gas prices low so that we spend money, and he is buddy with the saws. There's a lot of stuff, I'm sure. Like I said, there's a lot of moving pieces. Meanwhile, you have Macron, who's trying to be pretty progressive in my mind, and so his administration has been putting taxes on things like oil and I'm sure coal and things like that. They want to switch over to renewable energy, hence putting a tax on conventional energy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really do think we need to unhitch ourselves from the energy sources that lead to the destruction of our environment. However, putting a tax on things like this, where it causes the cost of living to go up, could have adverse impacts on your country. Exhibit A. So anyway, the growth in the so-called yellow vest protests appears to have caught Macron's administration off guard as a movement that began against fuel taxes has grown into a broader anti-government movement. The president has called on his prime minister to hold talks with representatives of the protesters while emphasizing that the violent few do not represent the majority of the citizens. It is far from clear who actually represents what has been described as a largely leaderless movement, but a meeting is expected as early as tomorrow. An earlier effort to meet with representatives of the movement collapsed when 8 self-declared spokespeople were threatened by others who insisted they didn't represent the demonstrators as a whole. On Sunday, Macron visited some of the areas that were worst hit by the riots and was met with boos and cheers, although the most spectacular violence took place in the city of Paris, which you can see this man is reporting here in the background right now, although where yellow vests have truly become a national movement. Overall, more than 130,000 people took place in demonstrations across France, and this is according to an article in The Guardian. It's difficult to reach the end of the month. People work and pay a lot of taxes, and we are fed up, one protester told the Associated Press. Macron said that while he was willing to listen to demonstrators, he would not tolerate violence, which officials are blaming on infiltrators. So a lot of people are saying that far right and far left extremists have pretty much taken control of some of these protests. The far right leader, Marine Le Pen, has gone to Twitter and told people to stop their violence as well. So again, there are quite a lot of moving pieces happening here. My only suggestion or my only hope is that people will stay safe during these turbulent times, and just try to maintain civility. I would think France of all places, but then again, France is also the place where you had the French Revolution, and so I would not be surprised if this was something similar to that, where you have the rich living in their rich excess while the poor are struggling to just make it to the end of the month. And hey, it happens everywhere, right? So a lot of times we think that it's terrible here in the United States. We think that America is the worst when it comes to taxes. No, maybe not. Here's a great example of what's happening in France and Paris. The people are rising up because they're unhappy, unsatisfied with what is happening. Let me know what you think. I would love if there was anyone from France to provide some feedback on this story. What are you dealing with? What are you seeing? How are you feeling? And that's all I've got to talk about today. Hopefully, it's always hard in this time of year. They celebrate, Christmas just as we do in France, and it's just really hard when you're trying to just live your life and you're not getting a bonus, you're not getting more money in your paycheck, yet more money is being taken out to support someone else's agenda. Now these people voted for Macron, and maybe they weren't expecting this, the same way many people that voted for Donald Trump probably didn't expect many of the things that are happening to them now. You live and you learn, right? So that's all I've got for today. Hopefully things kind of clear up and they figure out what needs to be done tomorrow when Macron meets with whomever the leaders are of this movement. But we'll check back in and see how things pan out tomorrow. That's all I've got for you all today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.